Welcome back to episode 5 of Show and Tell. This is my small adventure with various magic content creators as I learn about their history and journey to content creation. Today, I am joined by the Giraffanat, not the Giraffanat, a giraffe aficionado, fear manifest, as I recently saw on your Twitter, a little scary, but what do you do? And a magic streamer. So, Nat, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited. So, best place to start usually with these things is at the beginning. What got you into Magic? Like, when did you start playing?
Oh man, I started playing, I think 5 or 6 years ago. I knew about it long before then because my
Hmm.
brother is really big into magic. He actually currently lives out of the country, so not as much anymore.
Hmm.
But he mostly played like modern and legacy, but was also a level 2 judge. So of course
Oh,
he had all the magic things, so I knew about it.
yeah.
But I was always growing up, I was like, I'm too cool for this. Like, I just want to go play sports.
Yeah.
Um, and so didn't really get into it until about 5 or 6 years ago when I met my husband who plays. So he
Okay.
introduced me um, to Commander,
All right.
and I fell in love, loved it, and then of course, started trying other things like drafting and standard and popper and all kinds of different things. So that's kind of where I started.
Very cool. Yeah, I was never cool, so like I always kind of played. Always beginner. Play some sports. What sports did you play
I
growing up?
played soccer growing up.
Very cool. Yeah, I played a lot
Yeah.
of soccer too. Actually, broke my femur playing soccer when I was in third grade. That's kind of like my hometown like history. People like, oh, you're the kid who broke his leg and like was in a full body cast. Like, yeah, that was me.
Oh.
So, but yeah, it's always kind of a thing that kind of comes up for where people think like, I think when friends or old friends from school think of me, like that's what they associate with me. Like, oh, you're the
Yeah.
kid that was in the full body cast. Like, yeah, but well, that's cool. So, did you start with Commander? Is that what kind of was your first, I guess, format, or was that?
Commander was my introduction to Magic.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's if anyone has seen me like on Twitter and things, I'm really big into like promoting Commander as a format, and I think a
Hmm.
lot of that is because that's how I was introduced to the game. It's a
Yeah.
really great way to introduce new players to the game. Um, so yeah, that was I just dived right into Commander and then learned about all the other things from there. So
I'm seeing that a lot more these days. That for a lot of new players, Commander is the way to kind of get into the game. For um, which is funny because I think for a while I heard the common consensus like, oh, don't start with Commander because there's kind of so much going on. But I think a lot of times like introducing a lot of elements like you have in Commander initially uh, kind of makes you better at Magic quicker. I don't want to say better, but like I think it helped you learn Magic as a game engine a little faster than like maybe like Standard or even Modern would. Modern's like a three. I don't play Modern, so don't if there. I don't think any Modern players or whatever, but it tends to be like a 3 or 4 turn format, right? Which is not a lot of Magic playing, whereas Commander, depending on how you play it, there's like a lot of magic going on. So, and I think the social aspect for a lot of people is really what I know that's been kind of my biggest pull, kind of pull me back into the game itself. Is like, oh, you can play with like 4 people or three, or 3 to 4 people, and kind of hang out, and you can kind of do a little more crazier strategies than typical format, constructed format might be. So that's pretty cool. So like, what are your favorite? I mean, what kind of deck? What were your commanders when you started playing? Like, what kind of in particular favorites from the beginning?
yeah, so the first deck I ever played was, of course, I didn't have a deck of my own yet. I was
Yeah.
just getting introduced. Was Kalia, um,
Mm, okay.
and
Popular.
so that was a really good deck because things were pretty self-explanatory.
Mm,
Like as a tribal deck, you kind of have an idea of what's happening, and there's very specific things that happen in Kalia.
yeah.
So that was a pretty good deck to learn with. Um, but then to build my first deck, I decided to build Drevi stacks.
Oh,
So I
well then.
went like way off the deep end and was like, oh, I'm gonna build this like crazy powerful deck that I found out was more of a CEDH deck than a casual deck you bring to your command group. Um, so yeah, needless to say, I have a lot of those cards just kind of like sitting in binders now because I don't use them. But I did really like Derevi. It just was not a good fit for the group I was playing with when I first started.
Yeah, that's kind of definitely two ends of the spectrum there. Kalia's
Yeah.
kind of just like, let's get some big dragons and demons into play, and then Dreadly Stacks is you're not going to make a lot of friends quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Like, as soon as I played a Winter Orb, people are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I just built this deck. It looked cool." But I've obviously learned a lot since then. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing with Commander is funny. The discourse, right? That the D word is in terms of especially like with power levels of decks and like competitive versus non-competitive and what have you. But like, I think that story in and of itself is kind of really, I think what people should be doing is like you built through every stacks and you played it, and your play group was like, I don't think this is what we want to be playing against. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I know you said it's in binders, but like maybe if the deck was still somewhere, it's like maybe you pull it out every now and again. But like, being flexible in terms of like what people want to do when they play, I think that's an important part of the game, which sometimes people don't really think about as often as they should. So, but that's Trevi stacks. That's brutal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big tribal guy. I feel like I make a bunch of decks, but it's always like, oh, here's a knight's deck and here's a wizard's deck, and what I just built, just tribal all day long. But that's pretty funny. So, what's the most recent deck you've built or you've been enjoying? Is there any one that you've been really like playing?
So the most recent one I built was Lozon, which was in Baldur's Gate. It's the blue-red dragon that, um, oh gosh, I just had like the biggest brain fart. Um, the blue-red dragon that deals damage, I think, based on mana cost.
That sounds right. 'Cause
Um,
there's so many new cards these days. It's just like
yeah.
you get a hand, you get a whole, you get a handle one set, and then all of a sudden, like, here's two other sets that are popping out next week, and
Right. I've
yeah,
played it twice, but it was a budget build. So I basically took cards I got mostly from Baldur's Gate, and then some I had laying around in
hmm
my bulk, and basically just like threw together a budget deck. I think it's around $100.
hmm
Um, so that was kind of cool just to like build something from what I have laying around.
yeah,
The most recent builds that I've been playing a lot is probably Elminster Extra Turns.
okay,
Um, so essentially, Elminster helps you cheat in those large cost extra turn cards. And then you can kind of combo and loop them so that way you get almost infinite extra turns. You don't really need to use the infinite extra turns. I usually
yeah,
find that I only need like one or two extra turns to actually close out the game.
yeah,
Um, but then, of course, my favorite deck that of all time that I play all the time is Umbris. Hence the
yeah.
Fear Manifest.
That's cool. Yeah, that's I talking about what being able just to go through your bulk and like pull stuff out and like put it into a deck. That was for me the biggest interest I had in what Commander was. I played like I would never. I think I've gone to like one Friday Night Magic. Like I never played competitively. I was like your pure definition of like kitchen top player.
Yeah.
We would just throw decks together and like whatever we had. And I played so much Magic in college. Like I always joke that like I minored in Magic, in addition to majored in Halo and minored in Magic. Like, there was actual school in there somewhere. But we would do like just massive 6-player game like free for all stuff, and basically just playing whatever, which was kind of like in a lot of ways like a pre-Commander type of idea. So when I saw Commander as like a real form, I was like, oh, this is for me. This is like what I want to play. And just being able, someone who I've played since like the Urza, or collected, I should say, since like the Urza block. So I have a bunch of old cards
Hmm.
that like, oh, it's cool. I can kind of pull stuff out, or even if they're not super optimal, like, oh, well, I can just put this in this deck, and like if I get to cast it once, that'd be cool. See it in action, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. So you started playing about 6 years ago. You're now a streamer.
Hmm.
Are you full time streamer, or would you consider
No,
yourself?
I work full time and stream full time is essentially what I say. So I have a full time day job, and then this is kind of like my side thing.
Yeah.
Um, that is continually growing. So maybe eventually a full time thing, but for right now it is just kind of a side time thing.
Would you, if would you want it to be, if it was, like I say, fiscally feasible, would you want it to be a full time thing, or is that something that is like a goal, or do you think you enjoy it more just like doing an addition, as like a part time or on the side, or in addition to your full time job?
I don't know if streaming specifically would be something that I would want to be my full time job, but I think something to do with magic,
Hmm.
just anything to do with magic, I would love for anything magic to be full time for me. Um, so
Yeah, definitely. Do you have, so in addition, so uh, well, first question is like, what got you into streaming? Like, what kind of was like, oh, I want to start streaming. Like, that's, what was that kind of like spark like?
I had some friends who were like, "Oh, you should try out streaming." I actually started out as an FPS streamer.
Okay.
Um, and battle royale. I really, when like really started to take off streaming was during PUBG, during the height of
Okay.
that.
Hmm.
So mainly was streaming PUBG and Overwatch.
Okay.
Um, so that's kind of where streaming started for me. I definitely started streaming before I started playing Magic. So Magic
Okay.
kind
Okay.
of came into it more recently because I found out about playing online Magic.
Yeah.
Um, because I have an IRL group that I play with weekly. But then when COVID hit, and I started to look for other options to play,
Yeah.
that's when I really started going more into streaming and creating Magic content.
Very cool. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, COVID changed how we do a lot of things in terms of like playing online and streaming. I remember, I think I've told this story once, but like I tried streaming for a little bit, but like I'm weird, so I'm like I gotta find like a weird niche thing. And I had an exercise bike, so I was playing like games on an exercise bike because I was not really getting out, and I like to play basketball as my exercise. So I wasn't doing that. So like, well, I'll be on an exercise bike, and the grand plan was like, yeah, I can do things where like if people donate, it's like, oh, I gotta go hard for like 30 seconds or so. But like most new streamers, I did it for like 2 or 3 times to zero, or maybe one of my friends would put me on, and then I was like, okay, well, this was a fun experiment. But that's great to see. That's cool that you were streaming beforehand. So you're obviously pretty familiar with the landscape of streaming,
Mm-hmm.
and PUBG and Overwatch. That's pretty cool. I played a little PUBG. I never played Overwatch. First in shooters, I'm just don't have the Twitch reactions anymore, so I'm just kind of like, yeah. Magic is, I play Arena a little bit, so that's kind of my speed where I'm just like, click and drag and click.
Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. So me to switch over to streaming. What has your been experience so far with streaming Magic? Has it been um, difficult, or has it been like something you felt like it's kind of been a natural progression for you, or like what do you think about like the transition from FPS streaming into Magic?
It's definitely been a natural progression. I still occasionally will stream some FPS games, and it's great because I'll see people from the Magic community at those
Hmm.
streams.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes not knowing what's going on, but just wanting to be there to hang out with me, which I absolutely love that. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of been a natural progression, and definitely seeing more growth than stagnant or negative growth. So,
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it usually tells you that you must be doing something right. Like in the streaming world, like growth tells you kind of people are interested, and that's kind of what you're looking for.
yeah.
Um, so talking about, I mean, your experience, especially when you kind of become a streamer and you kind of start you do start growing a community. What is I we were kind of talking beforehand about the Magic community, and um, I see you were talking about how you really kind of promote the Commander community, and like what's been your experience, and like what is your thoughts on the Magic community as a whole, like interactions with people or making new friends, or just I guess the initial thoughts on like what being in the Magic community and being a relatively large name, and I would say in the Magic kind of world.
Yeah, I love the Magic community. Most of my experience comes from like Twitter and events and other
Hmm.
content creators, and for the most part, love. Just it's just such a welcoming group of people, and like you go to events and you see people, and it's just like it's so heartwarming. Like everybody just comes together. Um,
Yeah.
there are some bad apples out there, but honestly, just I think the amount of love from the community overpowers that. So
Yeah, I like with any community, you're gonna always have people who maybe not have the best intentions, or say things that aren't the nicest. But I part of my goal with this show is kind of highlighting the positive parts of what the community is and what it can be for people, and from my limited experience and kind of dabbling in the space. Um, for the most part, yeah, people are super nice, super welcoming. You can ask questions, and people will give you answers and give you deck lists or give you advice, and that's kind of what you want to see out of your community. Especially if you're in trying to grow it in a particular way. Like you don't want to be part of a community that it's not fun to be in, right? That's not a
yeah,
community at all. So, um, yeah, well, I'm glad. That's like I said, it's always nice to hear, and I think when you have people like you who are kind of part of that movement to push the community forward, I think it shows that the community is in good hands, because there's, that all kind of I think trickles down to maybe people who aren't streamers or content creators, but who are just part of the game. Like maybe people who watch your stream, like go to their local game store and like take what they see from you and other people and apply that in real life. So that's definitely I think something that it's very easy. So, hear about like the Magic discourse, especially on Twitter. Like the discourse starts and it's everyone's whatever. But I think generally speaking, like the Magic community is a very welcoming space, which I think is very nice to have these days.
yeah, and you want that for new players coming in, people that are interested in playing Magic. You want to make sure that they're being welcomed into a positive environment. So that way, they feel like it's a safe place for them to find someone to play games with or ask
Hmm.
questions or whatever else. So,
Yeah, I mean it's especially important for like Commander players, right? Because by nature, Commander is a social format.
mhm.
So if everyone was mean to each other, you'd have no one to play with or enjoy playing. So it's if you're not nice to each other, you're gonna have no one to play Commander with. So like it's
Yeah,
just be nice to
yeah,
each other. Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny. Um, so in addition to playing Magic, I think you do a little cosplaying. Like I believe you had a Tasha cosplay for. God, there were a bunch of these Command Fest got dropped. You were just at, so I'm trying to keep track of what you said. You Command Fest
I was in
which
Philly.
Philly. Okay, Philly. That's right.
Yes. And
So
then I'll also be at Bellevue in less than two
Bellevue.
weeks. So,
Well, that's exciting. So do you? I've seen you have your Tasha. Your Tasha look really cool, and you have a Rowan one. You are finishing up, or have finished, or are ready to go.
Rowan is gonna be finished this week.
Okay.
I leave for Seattle early next week because I'm
Okay.
spending time with some family before Command Fest. Um,
Nice.
so that'll be done this week. So I will have both Rowan and Tasha when I go to Bellevue. But yeah, just
Have you
recently
done?
got into magic cosplay.
Okay.
Um,
Very cool.
I have done cosplay for other things before
Okay.
that.
So
So
I was gonna ask, like, is cosplay kind of new to you, or is this something you've done a lot of in the past? Like, what other sort of cosplay have you done before?
yeah, so I actually have been closer to the cosplay community before I was into magic.
Okay.
So I also do photography. I
Oh,
actually
all right.
started. That's where I started in school, and then ended up going a different direction. But I would actually photograph for a lot of cosplayers.
Okay.
So I was kind of in that realm, and then I was like, oh, this looks so much fun. I'm gonna start doing this myself. So I've done everything from like Boo from Monsters Inc. to like Ash from Overwatch was probably my more recent one. Um, and then as soon as I got into magic, it was like, well, got to start working on magic ones.
Yeah. Very cool. Um, what has been your what has been your favorite cosplay overall that you've done so far, just in general?
Rowan is not finished yet, but it is by far my favorite.
Oh, really?
I am so excited for it. Um, I think confidence is so key in cosplay.
Hmm.
And as a cosplayer, you'll always make cosplays that you think you're gonna love, and then you have them on, and you're like, I like this, but I don't feel as confident in it. When I tried on Rowan the other day, and I mean I don't have it finished yet, but I was like,
Yeah.
this is it. I love this. Like I will rock this. So, yeah, that's probably I mean, I do love the Ash one. I made a little bob to go with it.
Oh, okay.
So, just a cute little round bob face that I carry around. So that's always fun to have little cute props to have with you.
Yeah. I always find cosplayers are some of the most impressive, like, artists, just because I'm just a photographer, so
Mhm.
I always joke, I just capture, I just push a button, right? Um, Obviously there's more to photography than that, but with cosplaying, it's the planning and the creating and the putting it all together and like the iterating, and then you gotta, and then it's just wearing it and kind of going out and transporting it. Like sometimes you see these cosplays, I'm just like, man, I never in a million years could do anything as impressive as that with my hands. And like it's just it's always, yeah, I have mad props for any cosplayer, because uh, just the fact of the time you invest in creating something, and sometimes like wearing it out and like being confident, that can be hard. Like, could be, there's it unfortunately sometimes cosplay is, it's a very personal, it's like a personal and public thing,
Yep.
in terms of like the dichotomy of like wearing it and being out and people seeing you. And so I can't imagine the amount of like emotional energy that's involved with cosplaying. So more power to you. Like, super impressed. Like, I look forward to seeing. I saw your Tasha costume. It was awesome. Like, it was fantastic. Looking forward to the Rowan. Um, uh, Maybe one day, hopefully one day, we cross at some
Yeah.
con or Command Fest, and I could can take photos. That's my biggest thing so far. Is like, I love taking pictures of cosplayers, because like
Yeah.
it's the one thing I can kind of contribute to, like, oh, here's a photo of you, like, let me do something like that. But yeah, that's cool. Like, I'm always glad that I think cosplayers are some of the more creative people, just because the amount of like stuff that goes into making a cosplay.
It's a lot of work. A lot of
Yeah,
late nights, especially when you're trying to get things done by deadlines. Yeah, a lot of heart and soul goes into those. So
Yeah, yeah, I can only imagine. Just hats off. The hat I do not have. Tip of the hat, as they as they say. Um, so outside of Magic, I think you're pretty big into Dungeons and Dragons. Is that correct?
yes, I love D&D.
So talk to me about D&D. I'm a well, out of my friends, I probably have the most D&D in spirit. Some of them, which is not a lot. So what is your relationship with like D&D? Do you have a consistent group? How long have you been playing? Like what's your D&D history like?
Oh, um, I've been in multiple groups, playing multiple characters. I've never DM'd. I've always kind of been interested in it.
Hmm.
Maybe one day when I have more time, because I know how much time goes into DMing. Um, but I every time I have a consistent group, something always happens.
Yeah.
Such is the life of D&D though. So, that's pretty normal, pretty typical if you're a
Yeah.
D&D player. Um, I have a few groups coming up that should be good. The most recent one I was in um, just ended.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, yeah. So that got called off a couple weeks ago.
Mm.
Which is okay because my character in that campaign actually died.
Oh no.
So, I had just made a new character, so I'm like, okay, well, I just made this new character. I can just use it for the next, campaign I'm a part of. So, it wasn't like, my long-term character, like, had nowhere to go. So, um,
So okay, so do you have okay, this as someone who's relatively like I've dabbled in D&D and usually I DM because my friends are not as nerdy as me. Like they want to play but they don't want to play it, so I'm like I'll do it. Like it's fine. Like I got
yeah.
it. Let me figure it out. Uh, so a lot of the intricacy. So do you have like a long-term character that you have for certain sessions, or is it like every session's a new character, or is it both? Like you have a character and then like depending on what you're doing.
Both.
Okay.
I mean, I have so many different characters. The one that died was it was a wood elf cleric, nature
Okay.
cleric, but had like a weird fascination with necromancy. Um, was kind of like, this cleric that like cared about nature and like was like, don't chop down the trees.
Yeah.
But then like also had like this weird inner struggle where she was fascinated by death and dead
Okay.
things. So I
I
had
mean that makes sense, right? Death is
yeah.
a big part of nature, right? Circle of life.
Yeah, exactly. So of
Lion King.
course, I was like the resurrector of the group, and
Okay.
so when I died, that was unfortunate because I could not resurrect myself.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, but so that's kind of one of my longer ones, and then I have a bard, who is also kind of one of my longer term characters. Just the typical like sassy, outgoing, like jumps up on the table at bars kind of bard.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, those are. But I like to mix it up. I like to try new things.
Yeah,
I think that's always good as a D&D player to just kind of try to mix it up and play new characters and new roles, and that's what makes it fun. So
for sure. Okay, so when you play, like, do you get like into your character, like when you're your bard? Are you like role playing as the sassy bard? Like, is that
oh,
do you really go for
absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. I think that it makes the game more immersive and more fun if you're really like embracing your character.
Mm-hmm.
What would they think? And even if it's different from what you personally would think, like you have to think as the
Yes.
character.
Yes.
So
That's
I feel like a
100%
lot of
agree.
people struggle with that when they first start playing D&D. They like think with their own mind rather than thinking okay, how would my character react to this, even if it's not necessarily how you would react to it. So
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference playing. I'm currently in a group. eh, There's 7 of us and the dungeon master, so you can imagine scheduling has been real bad.
yeah, that's a big group.
Uh, yeah, we haven't been able to get together for like 3 or 4 months. One time we had a guy just call in on an iPad, and we kind of made it work. Um, but I decided, like, when we started playing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it's like a dark elf gnome, dark gnome. It's a small gnome guy, and I'm like, I'm gonna basically just play him like a version of Rocket Raccoon. Like that's basically
Love
like
it.
my first thought was I'm like I'm gonna make him like I'm a big Star Wars guy. I'm gonna make him like Yoda, like kind of the quiet mentor. I was like, you know what? That's boring. I'm gonna make him Rocket Raccoon. He's gonna be sassy. He's gonna be like always trying to wheel and deal. And my really good friend has a big orc warrior, and he basically is a combination of Drax and Groot. Like he's kind of just like really kind of slow, and like we hang out together, like we're like a pair. And it's been fun. Like we kind of really get into it, and we have a few friends. Like this is the, kind of their first time playing, and they're still kind of trying to fill out like how do I engage, like without over like metagaming, we just
Mhm.
I'm like, just do it, like have fun, like don't overthink everything,
Yeah.
just if something goes wrong, like we'll figure it out, or, like that's part of I think that's part of the fun is you don't know what's going to happen next, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a fun experience being on the other side, like kind of being able to play out, as a character as
Mhm.
opposed to trying to put together a story. Because sometimes, poor dungeon masters, they'll go through and or even our dungeon master, he's created such an elaborate world and story. And like you can tell when they kind of want you to do things, and then you'll have that one guy that's like, "I'm actually gonna go do this thing instead. Like, can I do that? Like, is that?" And they kind of look at you, and they're like, "Okay, like fine, like I guess." Like,
I'm pretty sure that's why my last campaign ended actually.
oh really?
The group started doing some like really extreme things that the DM was like, "You shouldn't do this," but did it anyways. Um, to the point where actually, so after my character died, 2 other characters ended up dying.
Oh,
But not due to just like normal combat, due to decisions they decided to make against the DM's will. So, yeah,
I
that
see.
was. I'm all for like throwing things off. I think it's fun sometimes when things get thrown off a little bit, but like when
Yeah,
it completely just like changes everything, it's almost like, okay,
I
maybe we
think
should rethink this.
yeah, it's like, I think part of the fun of being the dungeon master is adapting to what your players are doing.
Yeah.
But like, don't take off the dungeon master. Like he
Right.
controls all of your fates. Like, what are you doing,
Right.
man? Like, yeah, that always makes me laugh when people think like, oh no, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. It's like, oh well, a meteor falls on you. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Essentially, yeah. Yep.
uh, that's funny. Um, so Dungeons and Dragons versus Magic. Do you prefer one over the other? Are they kind of two? Are they too different to compare? Are they both like depends what mood you're in. Like if you had to pick, I'm gonna give you the impossible question. If you had to pick one for the rest of your life, you only could play one or the other. Like what would you pick?
I would pick Magic in a heartbeat.
Really?
For the social aspect. Dungeons and Dragons, you're usually doing campaigns with specific groups. With
Yeah.
Magic, you're playing with all sorts of different people, especially now
Yeah.
that you can play it online with people. I've played games with so many different people now. Um, I would choose that in a heartbeat because the social aspect and meeting new people, just you could try to do that in D&D, but you would be like in a different campaign like every night, and that's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I guess that is actually a very good point. Think about D&D, like you might make like one or two new friends depending on your group, but like you are kind of
Yeah.
typically you're stuck. I don't say stuck, but you're with that group hopefully over the course of. I mean, I think there are groups that have, probably been together for years. Really,
Mhm.
where yeah, with Magic, I mean, you could hop on Spell Table and get. You could probably play 2 or 3 games a night with 3 new people. That's neat, 12 people a night if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like what we've been able to do now with something like Spell Table and be able to play with people online and being able to like have that experience still, especially with kind of with lockdowns and even just playing with people. Maybe you have friends you've made over Twitter and who are not in the same state or country. That's probably been one of the most I guess leap forward in like I would think community building is like you a lot of times like you can meet people online on Twitter, you can chat, but like you have this social engine to play, which I think is just going to make tighter bonds with people, which I think is to your point about why probably you pick Magic is it's something you really don't have in a lot of other games, like not to the level I think you get with Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Like you talked about playing like Overwatch and like maybe not so much PUBG because it's a battle royale. I'm gonna sound real. Is Overwatch is not a battle royale. It's like a team based shooter, right? Or is
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
So I don't know if you like maybe made friends through like Overwatch, but like even then, like maybe you have like you log into a lobby and you have like the voice chat, but it's just like you're in the lobby and you play, and you're in the lobby and you play. Where like Spell Table, it's like you're sitting down, you get everyone's kind of just like hanging out, and it's it's almost the closest thing you can get to like being in person with each other. I would say so. I mean, what would you think?
Yeah, and FPS gaming is a little different because you can make friends through it, but you're typically not during the game
Mm-hmm.
because games tend to be more on the toxic side than
Yeah.
as in opposition to Magic, where you're hopping in and it's definitely a different atmosphere where you're trying to make friends.
Yeah.
And then like the game is also there. Whereas in Overwatch, it's like, I don't know, you're relying on other people, so the toxicity tends to be a little higher there. So it's
Yeah.
definitely harder to make friends that way than I think with Magic. I think Magic is, especially in Commander, where you're playing in groups and
Yeah.
it's a more casual, like let's get to know each other and have a good
Yeah.
time and drink a beer and whatever else.
Yes, I can remember playing a lot of Halo 2 back in college, and voice chat, people weren't always nice to you. Didn't say, and probably still to this day, people. I mean, it's the Call of Duty is probably the most well known for
Yeah.
uh, certain choice words and language that people would say to you about you and maybe your family and mothers and things like that. So
Yeah.
don't don't see that too much. Hopefully, you don't see that in Commander games. That'd be wild.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be a lot different.
Yeah. Um, so so outside like just streaming, is there any like upcoming projects you have coming up? I think you might have said you might be working on some cool stuff in the future. Like what do you got? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so once I get through all these events that I'm doing, I am I will be a part of a few D&D campaigns. I believe some of
Okay,
them will be streamed.
very cool.
Not on my channel, but with other people. Um, I am starting a podcast here soon with a
Ooh, show and tell
friend.
exclusive, but maybe not. I don't know. Okay, very cool.
Yeah. I have not told anybody really about this. I've hinted at it a couple times to a couple people, but yes, there's a podcast coming soon with me and a fellow Magic community member.
Very
Um,
cool. Very cool.
so that will be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of interviewing people and a lot of just talking about the format of Commander itself and also about other formats and um, just kind of, obscure, interesting things that you might not hear on other podcasts. So
That's awesome. So it's a Magic podcast, probably mainly Commander, but kind of whatever is whatever interests you that time or whatever episode you're kind of doing.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that sounds exciting. I mean, I'm always more Magic content, please. Like, give me more stuff to listen to. I every day I find a new podcast that I can listen to. Like, man, I'm like, this is like awesome. I think a lot of times people kind of worry especially like other content creators, like, oh, like I don't need a new rival on the street. Like there's so many people, and there's so much content can consume. Like there's room at the table for everybody, you know. Like
Mhm.
as long as you go out and you're having fun, I think that's that's the important thing to keep in mind. So, well, cool. Well, I would say, uh, get ready for the world to blast your podcast, but I don't, my show is very small, so I don't know. Who knows if anyone will even know? But I can say here first that maybe it is exclusive, so I will have that claim to fame. So that is
Yeah.
awesome. Do you guys have a name yet, or is that in the works, or is it top secret? Like I can understand if you're
We
still
do have a name.
high.
Um, I'm not gonna say it just yet because I have not
Okay.
conferred with my co-host, so I don't want to
Perfect.
like
Perfect.
reveal things before I'm supposed to.
Nope, that is 100% fair.
But it's rolling along. So once Bellevue is over, we will probably be in full force on that, and we'll probably see some content coming soon.
Perfect. Well, I very excited to see that. I'm always glad to meet another content creator. I'm sure you'll be more successful than me immediately, so I'm very happy for you.
Oh,
Uh, no, that's cool. That'll be like I said. Yeah. I just there's Magic's just I enjoy consuming the content. So anytime there's new
yeah.
stuff to check out, it's always very nice. Um, cool. Well, few things. So part of what I do. Um, with this show is in terms of like I talk about building community.
Mhm.
I know you're big on community too, and what I do is in terms of like I joke about I put my money where my mouth is. So um, I do this thing. So I'm gonna have I'm gonna use the magic of video editing. I'm gonna pop up my community board, which would be like here, and I'll probably go pop and it'll show up. And what I do is anytime I have someone on my show, I try to like engage in their community. So like I think right now I don't know if you have a Patreon or anything, but I know as a streamer, obviously Twitch. So the show and tell show will become a consistent sub to your stream. So that way I can continue to support you in your endeavors as you kind of move forward, um, and help build out the community and I think the good vibes, which I think is important. So I look forward to being able to kind of add that, and I will make some sort of pin. I was gonna use like a picture of it. Maybe I'll find. I think. Do you have stickers? Do you
I
sell
do have
stickers?
stickers. I
Do
just
you
have
have
them.
no wood?
I hand them
Okay.
out at events. They're kind of just I'm not I don't want to like shout out businesses, but like I'm
No,
not
shout it
sponsored.
and
I'm not sponsored, but
okay.
Quiver
Oh
Time,
yeah.
the honestly like the best way to transport your cards. Um
Yep. 100% agree.
Stickers on those. I think someone equated it to like putting stickers on like when you had like those like colored pencil containers and stuff like
Yeah.
in elementary school, like someone compared it to like putting stickers on those. Like I love like the trading of stickers.
hmm
So that's essentially why I made them, so that way like at events I could be like, hey, like put this on your thing. And
No, that's perfect. The perfect thing to do. Like I think I went to um, MTG Vegas in November. It was kind of like the thing, and I had made stickers of just the Strixhaven houses, guilds houses. I just like gave those
yeah,
out to just to people because like, oh, this is kind of a cool like little symbol thing. Um, so I mean, if I think you have a giraffe sticker, I don't know if
I do.
I would love to make that I used to collect pins when I was little, like
Mhm.
in a cork board. So like that's what the community my board's like. Yeah, right. So like if I could have the giraffe image to put as like your pin
Of
on my board, I think
course,
that would be
yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most fitting. Uh, so yeah, I will. Like I said, we'll definitely hop next time I can catch your stream. I'll definitely hop in to sub and get you on my community board and build out the show and tell community in terms of like being able to support streamers who I think are definitely doing some good in the world. Um, and additionally, we kind of talked before. I'm going to make a donation to the National Abortion Fund in both our names because women's bodily autonomy is under attack. And you know what? This is one of the base things I can do. I, you know, people talk about not getting political. Like this is not political. This is like
Human rights.
bodily autonomy. Yeah, it's human rights. You know what I mean? This should not be an argument. So I will definitely be making a donation in our name to that to help kind of get women access to abortions who need them, because it can be the difference between a life saved and not. So I think that's very important as well. So
Absolutely.
Nat, I just want to thank you again for hopping on with me. I think you are doing great things for the community, and I'm very glad you sat down with me and talked to me about D&D and your cosplaying and all your fun magic stories. And I look forward to this podcast. Please, I'm sure I'll see it on Twitter, but everyone who checks this out, please keep an eye out, and I will obviously retweet and push that out as much as I can on my end, to my audience. Like they're ready and ready to go. And just want to thanks again, and hopefully we can catch a game sometime, or if like I said, are you going to try to come out to or go to the Magic 30 event? I know.
Yes. Vegas is very close to me, so
Yeah,
it's in driving distance, so it is very plausible for Magic 30 to happen.
that's hoping. I got to talk to the boss first, the wife.
Yes.
She's not a Magic player. I know you said your husband I think plays, but
Yes.
my wife does not play, but she is the best wife in the world, and she usually lets me pursue my silly
Oh.
artistic endeavors. So I'm hoping to get out there and just I'm working on as a photographer. I'm trying to think of something I can do, and I have an idea. You said you were maybe I'll talk to you offline. I have this idea of like a photo project to do while I'm out there that I think might be kind of cool. I can use some feedback on that. So.
Sure.
Banging my head against the wall, something that might be fun. So, well, hopefully, I mean, if we make it out, it'd definitely be cool to, I mean,
Yeah.
you talk to these people online, like you be able to see someone in person is always kind of like a surreal experience. I feel like it's the world we live in,
It's the
this
best.
digital
It's
age.
honestly the best feeling. Like, if you can meet someone you're friends with online, do it. Like, Command Fest Philly, I got to meet so many people that I've only, played games with online and talked to online, and like seeing them in person is like, you're just like, you're here, you're real.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's I think that's what it's all about, right? It's just
yeah,
making friends and having fun. So. Alrighty, well, I know you're getting ready for games, so again, thank you so much. This has been great, and thanks everyone who's checked this out. And like I said, keep an eye out for Nat's podcast and check out her stream. I'll have all your information should be under your picture below. I have like a name card thing. It's probably looks okay. I do everything okay, so it'll probably look fine. It'll be readable. So, all right. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.